morning. Welcome to episode 93 of Duval Rundown. My name is Gus Logue. Today I'm joined, as I am each and every Tuesday, by Hays Carlyon, who you can catch on The Frame G Show, which he co-hosts each weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. on 92.5 FM and 1010XL XM. Hays, welcome back to the show. How's it going?
Good morning, Gus. How are you?
Must be feeling good after the weekend that we had in Gators Finn.
Feeling great. Walking on air. Sweet 16, baby.
What's it been? Since 2017, I think the last time that Florida advanced to the second round. So Hays and I and much of the rest of the 1010XL offices are very happy and definitely in a good mood this week. Looking forward to another weekend of March Madness basketball. But Hays, of course, we are here to talk about the NFL and the Jacksonville Jaguars. We did a similar exercise to what
I would take Walter Clayton Jr. at 5.
I don't think he'll be there, Hays.
He won't.
But yeah, they would certainly sprint to the podium for Walter Clayton. 2 weeks ago on episode 78, we went through potential trade back scenarios for the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially considering that the Las Vegas Raiders, which owns the 6th pick directly after the Jaguars, they did not have a good quarterback on their roster at this time 2 weeks ago. And so I think there was a real possibility that if the Raiders entered the draft without a real answer at quarterback, then both they and other teams would be interested in leaping up to the 5th spot for a quarterback. One of those teams that actually you threw out was the Seahawks, who traded away their quarterback, Geno Smith, after we recorded the show, to the Raiders. And so now I think there's a little bit less of a likelihood that the Jaguars will be able to sell the 5th overall pick for the right to draft a quarterback. But certainly there are still a lot of different potential outcomes out there. Recently, there's some smoke on Jags Twitter last week that Travis Hunter could potentially maybe fall to the 5th overall pick. I talked yesterday about how I don't think that that's likely to happen because I think that if like one of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter make it to the 4th overall pick and the Patriots feel like passing on one of them, then they would probably be more so in trading that pick away so that another team could draft one of those two guys as opposed to just passing on them outright and getting someone else. But all that said, Hays, before we get into like potential specific trade back scenarios for the Jaguars, I'm just curious what your current read is on what will happen with the top 4 picks.
Yeah, I think top 4 picks, I think you're going to see Cam Ward go 1. I do think Shedeur Sanders is going to go, and whether that's 2 or 3. But I think he goes in the top 4, and then Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are off the board, would be my guess as to how it will go. I know the Patriots desperately need a left tackle. To me, if you're New England at 4, I just don't see how you pass on whether it's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. If one of those two guys is there, I just don't know how you pass on that. I mean, you can always address the offensive line in, the 2nd round, 3rd round, maybe hit it twice, as opposed to, investing, overreaching probably with the 4th pick. Why not just take a couple swings at it, later in the draft, 2nd round, 5th round, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I would think would happen. But look, if New England just is like, we love Will Campbell or we love Mimbu and, this is the direction we want to go, then obviously it could be a fantastic night for the Jaguars.
Yeah, I don't want to say that there's a 0% chance. There's certainly a non-0% chance that one of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter do make it to the 5th overall pick. Obviously, I mean, we're still 30 days out from the draft and anything can happen. As we saw last year, the best example is the Falcons drafting Michael Penix Jr. despite signing Kirk Cousins in the same offseason. Certainly there could be some things that are not even on our radar right now that could come to fruition in late April. But let's go through some potential scenarios. And so for the first scenario, let's say that the draft falls the way that you just broke it down, where 2 quarterbacks go and then Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter are taken with like a top 3 pick. So then the Patriots have the option between one of Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter or taking a different player or trading down. So if you're the Jaguars in that case, would you be interested in trading up 1 slot in order to get Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter? Looking back at the Mitch Trubisky trade from, I think it was 2017, shout out to our viewer Dell for getting this info. I saw he tweeted it, but The Bears traded away their number 3 overall pick, 2 thirds, and a 4th rounder to trade up to the 2nd overall pick to get Mitch Trubisky. So for this scenario, let's say the Jaguars trade the 5th overall pick and 3 third rounders to get up to the 4th slot to take one of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. So you could either trade up to one slot, or Hays, would you rather just stay at 5 and take the best player available, whether that is Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter if they do drop, or just kind of like settling for the next best guy? What do you think about potentially moving up if you're the Jaguars?
Yeah, it's a great question, but I don't think the Jaguars should move up. I don't think they will move up. James Gladstone has said, we value at bats, and their free agency haul leads you to believe that they probably feel like this is a little bit longer of a road than maybe what they initially anticipated. The moves they made in free agency, are reflective of a administration that's, I think, pretty disappointed in what they were inheriting. And so the moves they made were more for stability and to not just have massive holes and to fit the scheme of what they're going to be doing on both sides of the ball. But the fact that they're more glue guys and role players for the most part than going to sign, like, instead of signing 10 guys, signing 3 guys that are all, pretty accomplished players, that would have been more of an indication of, hey, they must think they're pretty close. They obviously don't think they're overly close. It doesn't mean they don't believe they can't contend this year, but I wouldn't think, by what they did in free agency, I wouldn't think you would then give up picks to move up one spot. I think in that scenario, they would just stay at 5 and take Mason Graham, and I think they'd be really happy with that. So I think if Hunter, I don't think Abdul Carter, there's any chance he falls to 5. Hunter, I don't think will, but could. I certainly acknowledge the fact that if the Patriots overdraft an offensive lineman at 4, then Travis Hunter falls in all likelihood. Because I do think Shedeur Sanders is going to go. And I'll give you my trade up here in a second, or what I now believe would be the most likely trade scenario for the Jaguars in the first round. But what I think you're going to see is they're better off staying at 5 and protecting their picks than they would be even to give up multiple third rounders. I just don't think that they're going to view it that there's that big of a gap between Hunter and Mason Graham. I could see them thinking Hunter is better for sure, but I think that they'd rather have Mason Graham and 2 or 3 additional players than trading up one spot.
Yeah, honestly, even if they do think there's a massive difference between like Hunter and Graham, I think that they would still be comfortable taking like a home run and a few doubles as opposed to just one grand slam. I'm definitely with you where it honestly doesn't really sound like a lot to trade up to one spot and just give up a couple day 2 or day 3 picks. But as we've heard from James Gladstone, definitely taking his word on this one, that the team is interested in trading back and adding draft capital. And as you kind of said, like, it's not just because he said it at the NFL Combine, because obviously you have to take everything that general managers say with a little bit of a grain of salt, but it's also because of what they've done this offseason in terms of really rebuilding the roster. And obviously they're not entering like a full-on rebuild and not like trading away players for assets or anything like that. But they certainly, I mean, they were the only team in the NFL this season not to re-sign one of their impending free agents. And so that goes to show like the point that you made about how they feel about the current roster. And so even if they were a contending team like the Bills or the Ravens or even the Bengals, and they felt like they were like kind of a couple pieces away from being true contenders, I'm still not sure if they would be really moved to kind of pull the trigger on this kind of move. And so definitely exciting to think about. But yeah, I agree with you with that. I think the Jaguars would likely stay pat, even if one of them did get to 4. But I'm interested to hear, what do you think is the most likely trade up scenario for the Jaguars?
I now think you need to look at New Orleans. I mean, this to me is a club that should have just stripped it all down and rebuilt. They didn't do that. We all know about, their cap issues that miraculously they're able to kick another year down the road every year. But to me, New Orleans is a team that I look at, and they're trying to stay in it. Mickey Loomis is trying to stay relevant. And Derek Carr, numbers-wise, has not been bad as a Saint when he's been on the field. You look at his passer rating the 2 years he's been in New Orleans. I think 1 year it was like 97.7. Another year it was like 101. That's not bad. I mean, that's not killing you. But he is 33, and he does have durability issues. The Saints are at 9. I think when you look at New Orleans, that could be a sweet spot. If New Orleans wants to go up and get their quarterback of the future. Now, in this case, I would think it's Jackson Dart. I think Sanders is going to be gone. So, part of this is, does a team fall in love with Jackson Dart, who it seems like has some believers, that he's a definite first-round pick, and some that do not believe that. But for the sake of the argument, let's assume the Saints love Jackson Dart. Well, the Saints could take the 9th pick, give it to the Jaguars for the 5th pick. So you're only moving up 4 spots, but it secures you Jackson Dart. This is the reason why I think teams are going to be more aggressive than maybe what we're thinking a month out. These guys don't make big money. The Colts are paying Daniel Jones $14 million a year, and they don't even know if he's going to be their starter. The money for veteran quarterbacks is so sky high. I mean, obviously, if you've got a great one, well, that's $55 million a year that you're, paying for that guy. So the salary at the position has gotten so out of whack that I think teams will be more inclined to be aggressive to go up and get their guy because it's just such a cheap player. Like if you look at Joe Alt last year, he was the 5th pick in the draft last year by the Chargers.
Yeah.
His cap number as a rookie was $6 million. That's nothing. I mean, that's literally like decent backup quarterback money. It was $6 million. It's $7.5 million this year. It's going to be $9 million next year in his 3rd year. So very reasonable cap number there. Now that'll go up a little bit because it's a quarterback and because it's a year later, but it's going to basically be this money. So if I'm the Saints, who don't have a lot of money anyway, and really I can't imagine they think Spencer Rattler is the answer based on the limited amount of time he got last year. And it's not like they invested a major pick in him. So you've got a 33-year-old starter in Derek Carr who has had trouble staying on the field and is an expensive player. So you don't know how long you're going to want to stay invested in him. So I look at it, the Saints would move up from 9 to 5. I think they would give the Jaguars their 2nd-round pick, which is 40 overall. And then I think the Jaguars would probably have to send back their 2nd, 4th rounder. So that I think in looking at it, and again, who knows what charts these teams use. I'm just going off of, the more standard ones. But that would be a fair deal. So if you're the Jaguars, you move back 4 spots, which would put certainly an offensive lineman in play at 9, whether Campbell's there, Mimbu's there, something like that. And it's clear they're committed to that line, that offensive line. That is clear the priority. I mean, They've already signed 4 guys. 4 of their 10 guys are offensive linemen. Wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they invest a 1st-round pick in an offensive lineman if they're able to trade back. But at 9, you also have edge. They could go edge there. Who knows? Maybe a Mason Graham falls to 9. Maybe you get lucky. Corner, Will Johnson, probably going to be there. Maybe it's a receiver. T-Mac certainly could be there at 9. So they'd have a lot of options. They might even, at 9, maybe there would be an opportunity to even trade back from there. Because once you get to like 9, then teams might even be coming up for an edge player. Kind of like last year. The Jaguars were able to trade back. It wasn't so the Vikings could go get a quarterback. They got Dallas Turner. So anyway, that's something that I would look at. I think it's good for the Saints because they really – now they – again, if I'm New Orleans, I'm just hoping Jackson Dart falls to 9. I wouldn't trade up. I would play the odds.
Yeah.
But guys sometimes get desperate. And again, not that they have to be desperate. They do have a competent starter in Derek Carr. I mean, I think he's a below average starter, but at least he is functional in his ability to do the job. But that would be one that I would look at. And I think if you're the Jaguars, if you're able to pull that off, I think you'd really love where you stand. You'd have the 9th pick, the 36th pick, the 40th selection, number 70, and number 88. So, I mean, you're talking about 5 players there in the top 88 of this draft. That allows you to solve a lot of issues, ideally.
Yeah, I absolutely love that scenario. And I think desperate was definitely a word that I was thinking of in terms of the Saints, because I really like what you broke down in terms of like why it makes sense for them to go after a quarterback. But I even think it makes sense for them to go after a non-quarterback. We've seen the Saints organization under Mickey Loomis trade 2 first-rounders in order to get Marcus Davenport in, I think it was like 2017. They traded 2 first-rounders in order to get Chris Olave a couple of years ago. So the Saints are a very aggressive team in the draft, or they at least have shown to be aggressive in the draft, and not just for quarterbacks. And so I think that like Jackson Dart or a quarterback in general makes sense for the Saints to move up for, but I certainly wouldn't like discount them just moving up for like Armand Membu or like just like a random guy that they fell in love with and feel like they absolutely need to have on their team. So definitely agree with you. I think that the Saints is like the most realistic trade back scenario for the Jaguars. I also like what you added about how like they could even trade back after that, because I was thinking if you get to 9, then I think that like the edge class all of a sudden gets very interesting, because Jalen Walker from Georgia might still be there. Micah Williams also from Georgia, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. There's a lot of like not super polished edge rushers beyond Abdul Carter, so there might not be any that go in the top 5 or even 8, but there's still a lot of just really great edge prospects in general in the first round that'll probably start going like around the 9 range. I think that the Packers specifically would be a potential target when we're getting ahead of ourselves. But if the Jags were to move back to 9, I think the Packers would be a team to potentially move back with even more, because like the Packers have like 22nd or the 24th pick in the draft, something like that. So for them to move up all the way to 5 might be a bit rich. But I think that they would actually be really interested in like a Shamar Stewart or a Micah Williams, one of the non-Abdul Carter edge prospects in this class. So really like that scenario. My question for you though is, let's say the Jaguars, let's say Travis Hunter falls to 5, but their phone is ringing from the Saints saying we want to trade up for, let's say, Travis Hunter. Are you still interested in a trade back? Or at that point, if Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter are there, are you sprinting to the podium?
I would run to the podium. I mean, if you get a player like Travis Hunter that falls to 5, I mean, in my opinion, that's just so, rare. I get that they want more at bats, and I understand all that, but I just don't see how you could possibly pass on him. I mean, so if Hunter is there at 5, it would take an awful lot. I mean, it would have to be more than what I'm suggesting here. I mean, which isn't fair necessarily to the Saints. So, I don't know that they do a deal, but I'd have to be beyond dazzled to give up the opportunity to write Travis Hunter's name on a card and turn it in. I just think that you look at everything that he can potentially do, and I have to now assume that the Jaguars have a coaching staff that can unlock the best spot for a player and the best plan for a player. Now, maybe these guys can't do that, but I have to assume they can do that. And I think with Travis Hunter, you just have so much that he offers you. You have to at least let him try to play both ways. And if you've unlocked a player that can give you, let's just say he's a full-time corner and he gives you 25 offensive snaps a game. He's good enough on offense that when he comes in, it's not a dead giveaway what you're doing, like it was with, like, let's say a Jamal Agnew. Right. So he plays enough that he's not a gimmick player, but that's where he's getting his rest, or however you want to slice it. But if you're getting a star who plays on basically 80% of the total game, you can't put a price tag on that, in my opinion. And so, and he fills 2 needs. You need a corner opposite Tyson Campbell, which he helps you with, and you need a receiver, opposite Brian Thomas Jr. So, to me, to have an offense that breaks the huddle with Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, I would stand pat. I would take Travis Hunter, and I would not trade back if he was on the board.
Yeah, as Duval TV commented on YouTube, if Travis Hunter is available, I wouldn't run to the podium. I would teleport. I definitely agree with you there. This is different from like what we broke down earlier in the show of like, oh, we'd rather like stay pat at 5 as opposed to like trading a bunch of assets to move up one spot with the Patriots to potentially take Travis Hunter. Like it's just a totally different ball game when you're not having to give up additional assets in order to get him. So I certainly think that even if the Jaguars' phone was ringing, was hot off the hook with teams trying to trade up, I think that Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter would certainly be a Jaguar if they were there at 5. The one scenario that I had was I definitely don't like it as much as your Saints scenario. I think that's the best one. But just one more to throw out there would be the Jets trading up 2 spots from 7 to 5. I saw a report, I forget who it was from, but apparently the Jets really like Armand Membu, the offense tackle from Missouri. So I'm thinking that like if Cam Ward is the first pick, and then the next 2 picks are Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, and then the Patriots take Will Campbell, then maybe all of a sudden, like with Will Campbell off the board, some teams will get a little bit jittery and say, like, we really, really want an offensive lineman right now. So potentially, again, if like Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Will Campbell are all off the board by the 5th pick, maybe you can trade back 2 spots with the Jets or someone else if they really want an offensive line prospect. But again, really liked your Saints scenario.
I like the Jets real quick. I like the Jets because they signed Justin Fields, but I don't know that that means that they're out of the quarterback market in the draft. I mean, Justin Fields has done some good things, but I don't get a sense that that's a player that necessarily is, okay, this is our guy for the next 3 years. We're good at the position. So maybe the Jets even kind of throw a curveball, somewhat like the Falcons. Well, the Falcons threw a much bigger curveball than what this would be.
Yeah.
But, do the Jets look at it and say, well, we have Fields, but we want to also go get Dart? Again, assuming that Sanders is off the board, which I believe he probably will be. But yeah, I think the Jets make sense because to me that Fields contract doesn't say locked in guaranteed starter for the next 2 or 3 years. To me, it's more than necessarily a bridge contract, but to me it's not. We think this guy's a superstar and we're giving him a bunch of money that will preclude us from investing in the position.
Yeah, I feel like he's essentially just like a young bridge quarterback where it's like you're probably going to move on from him in 2 to 3 years, but you're at least holding on to the possibility that maybe he's your long-term guy. But yeah, I certainly agree with you. Wouldn't count out the Jets or the Saints or any other potential curveball teams from getting a quarterback. As you mentioned again 2 weeks ago on episode 78, maybe the Seahawks will get aggressive and try to trade up. I get they have Sam Darnold, but I almost feel like he's also a bridge quarterback, sort of in the same vein as Justin Fields. But that'll do it for this episode. That was a lot of fun. Hays, thanks so much for joining.
Oh, sure thing. Always enjoy it. Take care.
Yeah. Well, I will see you next Tuesday. In the meantime, go Gators, and thank you. He's dipped out right when I was saying go Gators. I thought I was going to get one back. But thanks again to Hays. Thanks to all of you guys for watching and listening. I will be back with a very special guest tomorrow. Haven't dove in a ton on like specific prospects just because I don't really get super into the weeds of like NFL draft prospect analysis. But tomorrow's guest does do that. And so I'm very excited to just get deeper into the NFL draft and the prospects this season. Yeah, that'll do it. Have a good one, y'all. Take care.